Souse us, therefore, in the powdering tub of thy mercy,
that we may be tribes fit for the heavenly table.
Greetings, Meatsmith. This is a Meatsmith Harvest podcast, wherein we endeavor to restore husbandry to prosperity
by means of the traditions of our fathers.
This dialogue picks up where we left off in our last episode's conversation. You can find part 1 on our website, YouTube, or iTunes. If the content resonates with you, please consider supporting our team by going to patreon.com/Meatsmith and donating a small monthly pledge. This goes directly toward more free media headed your way. Thanks for staying tuned for part 2.
So I think that one of the things, getting back to what you were asking, Lauren, I think is the pursuit of poverty, truly the pursuit of poverty, and saying that
holy poverty, not the kind that, like Job sitting on a dung heap, but something short.
Yeah.
And I also, where did you say, what are the things? We did stop taking vacations. We had a dairy cow. We stopped taking them altogether. The boys would go on hiking trips with Boy Scouts, or, the top 5 are boys, so we'll say boys, but we mean kids.
We sent our daughters just recently to Europe, but together.
Wow.
Because we can't all go, and we're getting ready to do the Camino in December.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to take some time out for that, and then somebody's got to be here on the farm. So
how old are your youngest?
Our youngest is 17.
He's 17.
17.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're spread over.
So
we have 8 children, Lauren. The oldest is 38. The youngest is 17. So I have a 21-year spread, and they are literally just about 3 years, there's a new baby.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's amazing. Just the fact that you could send a few kids that are responsible adults now on a trip, because that's one thing I'm feeling. We haven't been taking vacations for years now, so that's one reason why that's never been an excuse to not have a cow. It's like we're not taking vacations anyway, so that's not a big deal.
It's can I tell them kind of what we do, or what are you going to do?
Well, just that the kids need to experience a little bit of freedom and independence, and I'm feeling that now with my older kid, my 15 and 13-year-olds. We're homebodies, yes, but they need to experience some pressure release and look at be curious in the right way towards the world, and grow up and experience who they are and how virtuous they are or aren't. And
I would even frame it more like they need, I guess it's liberty, they need liberty or to get out there, but it's so that they learn how to conduct themselves. There's literally, because boys, I don't know if you know this about boys, they're not born knowing how to conduct themselves.
I'm one of 6 boys. I know it pretty well.
And we have 6 boys.
But no,
I know.
For us, the really wonderful thing was Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts have gone down the tank. I'm really disappointed with. I was an Eagle Scout. I had some Eagle Scouts, but the scouting was because we had a remarkable troop. It was a Catholic troop. The scout leader was really remarkable. It was a really good thing. That, unfortunately, so for my last couple, they didn't have that, but we were trying to find the thing, and I do think that. So recently, we had School of Traditional Skills come in and do some filming, and our kids don't like to be here when that happens. So I sent the 2 girls to Homestead Heritage in Waco, Texas. Do you know that place?
I've heard of them.
Oh, they are.
They're a group of evangelicals, right?
We
they're
love
right.
them.
They're Anabaptist, except the Anabaptists say no, you're not, because the women don't cover their heads. But in every other way, they're Anabaptist. And where this is taking us, I think, is where almost every conversation we've had in the last year has gone, and I think it's sort of divine pressure in a direction, which is this question of the larger community. Like, in the last 30 or 40 years, a whole lot of seeds have sprouted individually in homes that have led people toward things like homeschooling and home birth and homesteading. But those seeds are scattered across the country. And since a little bit before COVID, I think there's been this sudden, sort of a curdling, a coalescing of all those scattered seeds, this, sort of a herd impulse toward the need to be supported by more than just our families. In the beginning,
is this biblical enough. In the beginning, or
in the beginning? No, it's not good for man to be alone. So maybe it is. In the beginning, it's enough that we look at our own lives and say, like, who am I? How am I being a child of God? And how is my family to conduct ourselves so that we grow as children of God? But I think this is a moment in time when we're starting to see and feel how desperately, or how the next step is, and then those individual families need to coalesce. And the Homestead Heritage people,
they have
been
like
doing it for 50 years.
400 or 500 families in their community. It's huge. It could have all the earmarks of being a cult.
No,
but it is not.
It couldn't have all the earmarks.
No,
but it's in Waco, so people think that anyway, right?
So, in any event, we really, every time we've met these people, and they've got a little bit like bees, they've thrown out swarms at different places and set up communities, and they are really fascinating. But go to Plowshares. Is that Plowshares?
That's sort of their online magazine or whatever you would call it, I guess.
But it's also their training center.
It's also their school,
where they do woodworking and they do all these kinds of things. And I'm trying to get my son. I don't think it'll be very hard. So in any event, we sent the girls down there, and they found people like themselves, and that's hard to find. And I think that if you look into it a little bit, you may find that your 15-year-old could take a class there or meet the people there and have
just
make
sure he knows his faith really well, so that going down there and they're not going to try and convert
evangelize
him, but going down there and encountering so much of good, he needs to know why he's not, why this isn't a better good than the good he has at home.
The first trip, go with him, go down there together, and go meet Butch, go meet Grady. These are just
our particular friends there,
right? But they are, you would just, and that's what my daughter had. They went there and they encountered these people, and they just fell in love with them.
But them aside, or at least like. In addition to that, I think that we're hitting the point where, like, the boy who becomes a page in the other knight's household, and that's how he encounters the bigger world. We're hitting the point where maybe short visits of that kind are really indicated too. Yeah. It's important. The reason we live in Ohio, the reason we stayed in Appalachia wasn't really that it rains here. We tell people that, but the real reason was in about 1994, we looked at each other and we realized that anywhere near family, our kids were going to, as they grew up as Catholics, they were going to be more and more in a minority. And we knew that it's not good for a kid at some point to have to ask himself, if my parents say one thing and the entire world, as far as I know, says something else, how likely is it that my parents are really right? It's good to have a church community that acts like a church community, so that children growing up know who their people are. And we knew that if we stayed here, we could homeschool, home birth, go to daily mass, pray a family rosary, and our kids would be 16 before they figured out that was weird, because there are just enough Catholic homeschoolers in the Steubenville area. And such was indeed the case, like we did, even though, this was a charismatic community, we are not, we're country people. Most of these people are city people. Yeah, they're scout troop and at church, they were surrounded by people enough like themselves that they weathered that moment in their young adulthood very, very smoothly.
But we just were at a conference. Oh, well, you were there too. So the conference in North Carolina.
The Catholic one.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah. They were talking a lot about community too.
Education.
At that one.
Yeah.
Right.
There seemed to be, when Brandon came home from that conference, there seemed to be a lot of different schools of thought represented there, just in the world of home education, because we were all like on fire Catholics, all pretty on fire homeschool. Like we all believe that the public education system's broken. So, but amongst homeschooling Catholics, we felt like there was a lot of, I wouldn't say division, but definitely disagreement, or just two different sides of the spectrum represented.
At least
some
two.
people saying, we should just send our kids to boarding schools, or
there's lots of Catholic boarding schools popping up.
Which we're not in that camp, but also like, just go for it. You're fine. You'll do it. And I have been there actually. This very enthusiastic, confident home educator.
Kind of like the unschooling thing.
Yeah, right. I have been an unschooler. I'm not there anymore. But in general, I know grace is on my side. I know God's He divinely appointed me to teach my kids.
Right.
And yet, now I have 2 teenagers, almost 3, and I'm feeling, and I have all these little kids, like, man, I wish I had a really good Catholic school that I could ask for help. And there isn't one, so I have to just keep plodding along. But I wish there was that broader community to look at. His mom homeschooled him in the 90s. So there's a little bit of that, like, this is the second generation now. Not that we have their help right now, but I have the confidence knowing that it did work for them.
Brandon turned out okay, so.
Yeah.
But,
that's what it's come back to me now. So that, who wrote Liturgy of the Land?
Marcus.
No.
Oh, no.
No. Jason Craig. Jason Craig and Tommy Van Horn.
Right. He asked us to write an article on
silence,
learning to be silent as a parent, getting out of the way. And, when you start seeing your child, and right around 15, 16, 17, you're going to start seeing them excel in something. And it could be mechanical, it could be woodworking, it could be carving, it could be, a number of different things that it could be. And what we tried to do at that stage of the game was say, this kid is showing an aptitude for this thing. How can we get him with someone who knows that better than we do?
And I'm going to step in here and say, we have no prodigies. So there was no instance where we went, this kid is really gifted, let's run him down that alley. No. This was simply, kid A is interested in blacksmithing.
Right, and it didn't even necessarily mean he was particularly good at it.
Right. And we're all sort of generalists and reasonably good at a few things.
But then starting to look around our community and say, is there someone? And so a number of our kids worked for, who is now the president of the St. Joseph College, Mike Sullivan.
Your best friend.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, right. Remember him?
That's right. And so that we would just find ways. And there was an auto mechanic who we really trusted. And so we would try and find a way for the kids to do some of those kinds of things. So I think that within the community is really good. And then trying to find a way for them to, I think you're asking this, to get out of the family and take an extended trip without the family. And it was kind of nice for us. There was the St. George Trek, which was a Philmont scouting event, and several of our older kids went. It was a 10-day long, it had a little of the Camino with it. And this one was actually run by the Catholics, and our local bishop was very much into scouting, and he actually took 3 or 4 of our kids to that. So I do think that we need to be looking for opportunities like that at this age, at the age you're talking about, for him to begin to underneath somebody else, get out of the way a little bit. Although you have such great skills with the meat, that I would think that could certainly be something that
Lauren, I did.
I
did find that about the time a boy was big enough that he could look at me and think force would not be on her side at this point. It was time to start, to recognize that I could make suggestions, but it was disorder. It was inordinate for me to lay down the law very much. And of course there was Papa, so Papa could lay down the law. But they spent more and more time working with Shawn or working on their projects from that point onward. And then I think the other thing for us moms who really have an emotional need to know we're doing the right thing, not from day to day, from minute to minute, we need that sense of security and being upheld, that we have to practice, like not knowing there's not a playbook. If I do the right thing, the right results will come out of it. And for me, it's extreme. It's always been a cause of fear, because the one thing I don't want to mess up is being a wife and mom. That's, take everything else, Lord, but don't let me screw this up.
Right.
We don't know if we are called to be a people apart, as we know we are. And if in the present iteration of humans, the thing we're being apart from, we need to be very, very, very apart from, right? It's a mess.
Yeah.
And so we're responding to that call, then it sort of stands to reason that we have to follow the good, not knowing what the next step looks like.
I think another thing that we did as a family is that we would have big projects. Almost every year there was a big project. So we would add on to the house, or we would do something like that.
Build a barn.
And again, in the sense of poverty, we didn't hire it out. We said, this is our job. We're going to do this. We're going to figure out how to do it, and we're going to not do it maybe so well as somebody. But that was the launching pad. And then my children all then would study or would work under somebody else. And they are infinitely better
Thank goodness.
at what they do
Than we are.
And our house is such an example of that, because they timber frame, they do masonry work, and they're perfectionists, and not in a bad way, but they really want it to be right. I was always I don't have enough time. I've just got to, it's okay. It's all right if it's just done okay. And they
don't brook with that.
No, they want it done.
Tell our listeners what happened and how your kids are jumping in to help you guys.
I'm sorry, say that.
So almost 2 years ago, more than a year and a half ago, May 30th of 2023, a lithium-ion battery in a charger exploded on the second floor of our house and burned the house, not to the ground, but destroyed the house. And the fire was still burning as the boys were, as word was going out, and our 5 oldest are boys. So when we refer to our adult kids, we say boys, even though 2 of them are girls. were calling home and saying, we're going to rebuild. And we were at a place with two of them, the number 1 and number 5, they lived near, and they were both in places in their self-employment / other employment where they wanted to be able to transition out of wage jobs and toward their self-employment, but they needed a cushion. And Shawn gave them that cushion. And so did some of your listeners and lots of other people who donated to a GoFundMe, and our insurance put money in. And we had the money at that point to say, well, all this money has to go into this house. Time and materials, guys, have at it.
Yeah.
And we have an architect. We have a son who went to Notre Dame. And so we turned to Tom, and Thomas said, what is it that you want? And Beth said, I want just exactly the same house we had. And Thomas said, we'll talk. And he said, no. He said, this is going to be a homestead house. This is going to be, it's going to function around all the things that you've been doing and all the things that you've been putting up with in this 100-year-old house, and we've done different things to try and make it work. And he said, but all that's gone now. We're going to take it all the way down to the ground. It'll be the same footprint, but we are going to rebuild it, facing the right direction. And we're going to think about, how does milk come into the house, and where should it go first, and where should all these, and it has been the most exciting. When people say, oh, I feel so sorry for you with the house, I think, no, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because I'm finally able to do the things I wanted to do with that house. Financially, I have the money to do it. I've got an incredible workforce, and people who understand when we say what we want, they lived it.
Right.
So they know the changes that needed to happen to the house, and there was no balking. There was no, if we had to move into a hotel and wait there and try and get a designer and then a crew and everything, this would have been the most miserable experience of my life.
Yeah.
But because these kids knew this world, they had the skills, they were very excited about the project, this has been just a delight. It's been so much fun.
It is definitely one of those, childbirth type experiences where a great deal of lack of control and a certain amount of discomfort is the gateway to, this next sort of unmitigated good. I don't suggest anybody burning their house down, but in this case, how else was the Lord to give us this gift?
That's
it was.
Yeah.
And how many times in your life does that happen, right? Where you think, dang, I don't want this to happen. I don't like this. I'm not happy. This feels uncomfortable. And then you sort of push through it and you think, oh, that was how you were giving me this great gift. Sorry for all the for all the pushback, Lord.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful story. Thank you.
Yeah, it's always a balancing act, because I resonate so much with what you're saying about poverty. And I love the way that St. Thomas talks about it. He says, there's goods of the body, and then there's exterior goods. And really, we just need the goods of the body. We just need a sufficiency of bodily goods. And literally, that's like clothing, a roof when it's cold, and food and water. And I think... Yes, actual food that is not ontologically messed up. And I think in our modern age, if unless you literally live next door to church, transportation, you're going to need a way to get to mass.
Yeah, even Wendellberry, none of us have cracked the transportation, because our world is now. We just went to Germany. We are not wealthy, but we went to Germany because our son's in the Air Force. So we went to go visit him over there, and they still have community that's based on proximity. And that's what we don't have in America. We do not have proximity, community, and that's what we desperately need. And I'm really hoping that it might come of this homesteading.
I believe it's the next obstacle.
Yeah.
So as we've, in the course of our lives, there's been the obstacle of fogging in the church and how it's being passed on to us. There's this
Yeah.
You know, we have a lot of people trying to move past the obstacle of, wait a minute, what is it to be Catholic? So we've had that. We've had the home birth one. We've had the homeschool one. We are certainly living through the food one, the health one. But I think the one that's going to, I'm not going to say solve our problems, the one that's going to it needs to fall into place now is that of proximity. That we are unable, Wendell Berry says the reason he has to, or we're forced to keep transportation is that without it, we are unable to be of service to ourselves and one another.
Yeah.
Well, we need to do something about that. I'm not sure how we're going to do it. I don't know what that'll look like.
And again, we come back to the homestead heritage people, and they are managing to do something about that, and it's very exciting. It's just wonderful to visit them, to see what they're doing, to watch. They're very they're focused on their families, they're focused on their kids, and so all about the next generation. Learned these skills because they knew their children needed to know these skills, and so they had to learn them. And then they were able to pass them on. And they have these fairs at Thanksgiving time. You guys have got to go to this thing. They have this fair at Thanksgiving time where their wares are displayed. They have thousands and thousands of people that come to visit, and it's just remarkable.
As craftspeople yourself, you will appreciate their craftsmanship, which is that, and their children are the two best witnesses to the success of what they're doing.
We'll be at their conference in April. They're doing a conference at the beginning of April. No, at the end of April. At the end of April, they're doing a conference there, and we'll be at the
in Waco.
But our Amish friends,
in Waco,
our Amish friends have this. I mean,
yes, that's
we
right.
all know people who have the benefit of proximity for whatever reason it might be. You know, like a city parish. In Pittsburgh, there's a community of Catholic families that just bought houses all in the same physical parish. Church.
There's one of those here in Tulsa.
Yes, right, and there are the people around Clear Creek, right? Around Clear Creek.
Yeah, I was thinking Inola, but Clear Creek too. That's right.
Yeah.
And there and even just looking at our own family with
right.
You know, it's like our family, and then the people who have become family, you know, through death or whatever. You know how some need sometimes creates family. We're able to be of so much service to one another because we're proximate. When somebody calls and says, you know, can you get me at the airport? That's, and the automatic answer is, somebody will be there. It's because we live close enough that none of the requests we make of one another require that we stop and think about it. We just can say yes and yes and yes. And I think we need, I think that this next veil of figuring, you know, like, how do we keep moving forward, Lord, without you giving us the playbook? I think the next veil between us and, you know, seeing something of what's coming is going to be figuring out some way of being proximate to one another.
You have to move close to us.
That's right. That's what we can say to one another.
You're building an argument. I'm not going to lie.
Well, because I think one of the big hindrances to that is, because I am totally on board on the level of, you know, my appetites and the things I want. I have no desire, none, zero, negative a million, for an excess, you know, of entertainments or the things that I never need to eat out again. Like, we're not attached to any of that stuff. But I kind of have to work hard enough as someone would to afford all of that stuff because I have a mortgage. And this is the crazy thing. Working for a sufficiency of bodily goods. I've always said this, maybe naively, but also maybe not, that if all I had to think about was put clothes on the kids, get them to mass, and good food in their bodies, and shelter and transportation, like, I'm good. I can do that with my eyes closed, one hand tied behind my back. Got it. But I have to pay the bank thousands of dollars every month. So I have to go and I have to grasp at excess, what I think is excess income, just to, and the weird paradox of it is, just to be here where I do have the barn and the fencing and the land that enables me to produce this good food. So I'm in the middle of just reanalyzing that whole struggle, that conflict right now. And you know what it usually means is, okay, well, solving it would be sell this place high, buy some, patch of dirt for outright somewhere else. But we're 13 minutes away from church. We're right there, which to me is close. That's very close.
Right.
Which is that's the closest we've ever been. And it's sort of like we're paying this premium for an amazing plot. Like, I love this place. I'm looking at the frozen Arkansas River right now, and we can grow food here, and I've got infrastructure. Right. But man, I really have to spin my wheels, so to speak, just to hold on to it, to keep it.
Our 16 acres, which was designated by Ohio as not suitable for agriculture, was $11,000.
Oh,
so
in 1996, it would be different.
Right.
That really
like a different universe.
That we didn't, that we bought a piece of junk and then we turned it into a farm. So in some sense, there is. Now, another thing that I'm very excited about is there's a guy here in West Virginia, Caleb Hanshaw, who is taking strip mined land and stuff like that. And I don't know, we haven't had enough conversation with him yet, but they are looking for the worst land, and they're talking to the owners, and then they somehow get it for almost nothing or for free.
It's because if you're a mining company, or if you have, for some consideration, taken over the responsibilities of a mining company, you have a certain legal responsibility for remediation. Yeah. So that land is actually not an asset but a liability, and you're willing to pay people or charge them very little if they'll take over your liability.
So Caleb is taking on this land, and then he is using cows and natural methods to rejuvenate it, and he's having great success. And to me, that is that's homesteader world.
It is the helpful thing it's different once you are established somewhere maybe, but for people who are looking for land, to be told, find garbage, the cheapest stuff you can find, or what we need to think realistically is, wherever I am, how can I make this place work? And even if I don't own it, even if it looks like trash, even if, I don't know,
it's not that much.
If it's contaminated, it's very small. I can sort of ignite a natural fire here that will produce fertility and food. It is hard though. That mortgage question. Our son Luke, who's your age, has the same question.
All of our children are very frustrated with the system. Part of it is that the farm bill is throwing tons of money to people who are gobbling up huge amounts of money. And it's our taxpayer money that is preventing us from being able to buy that land, because these guys are able to take that money and jack the price way up. And we have got to get the government out of the way.
The only thing I'd quarrel with that statement is I'm not sure we have to.
Well, that's true.
This is as the juggernaut increases speed, it's approaching light speed, hitting some, impossible barrier, maybe a black hole. The fallout, right? We can't hope for it and we can't predict it. But the fallout will it necessarily include a lot of things that are uncomfortable. But one of the things that won't be uncomfortable is if nobody can demand that you make payments on that mortgage. I'm not proposing that as something we can either bring about or wish for. But I think back to the question of not knowing what's next in the playbook, if we said to ourselves, land's only going to go up and it's only going to get more inaccessible, we might as well just, buy a place in the city, move into an apartment and do our best there. We need to be able to say to ourselves, maybe we can't see how this mesh of difficulties is going to be, is going to drop from us. But we have every reason to believe it will, right? It has no integrity, and it's destructive. So it should, it should destroy itself through its own lack of integrity. I pray anyway. In the meantime,
we drop out.
Yeah. Yeah, and in the meantime, there's to transition, but not totally transition to something totally other. Like I said, we've been milking our sweet cow or I have been.
Tell me your name.
It's so fun. Georgie. Her name is Georgie, and that's the name she came with, and I think it's great, so she kept it. She's 3 years old. She is a Jersey. She's A2, which I don't actually care about, but that's what was out there.
There you go.
And when we were looking for a cow, she's expensive, but not compared to what is available right now. It's crazy. We got her for $3,000, which is
wonderful.
That's not
good price.
Yeah.
That's about
pretty good.
About,
yeah.
That's about that middle. Like you did not pay too much for that cow.
Yes.
The boar's head in hand bear I, bedecked with bays and rosemary.
How many people do you know who are building their home culture around seasonal harvest and feasting? Or that are hunting as you are for self-sufficiency and back-to-the-land values? Or that share your artist's passion for human-scale meatcraft? At farmsteadmeatsmith.com, we've created a community of hundreds of omnivores from around the world with these shared goals, and 2 major places for them to learn from and inspire one another. First, we have our semi-annual hands-on educational event, The Family Pig, here at our Heartland homestead in Oklahoma. Come meet Brandon, get your elbows greasy, and over the course of 3 days, kill, cut, cure, and cook 2 pigs completely. You'll rub those greasy elbows with other meatsmiths from around the country, sharing meals and conversations to inspire you for years to come. Secondly, for more remote learning, over at farmsteadmeatsmith.com, we host a purely digital membership program with an archive of film and textual resources 5 years deep now. And both our on-site classes and online program include access to our most unique and rewarding private community Facebook page, Meatsmith Table, which is the only international network by and for homesteaders harvesting animals on a domestic scale using traditional and regional methods. We've been told that our classes are life-changing and the membership program unparalleled in quality and quantity. To get a taste of our education, search farmsteadmeatsmith.com and our YouTube channel for our free films, conversations, and downloads. Explore how we and other meatsmiths across the globe may best come alongside you and support you in building your home around the harvest. Please head to farmsteadmeatsmith.com today.
To me, she is a sweetheart. So that to me is worth everything. That was priority number 1 for me, is that she just be, as tender as a kitten with much slower muscle reflexes. And she is.
Right.
It's like, the first day we milk her, everyone is in the barn stall. My 2-year-old is like underneath her. My 4-year-old is crawling on her, and she is not phased at all.
The baby screaming.
The baby screaming, the dog is barking, the shovel's falling, everything is loud, and she is just so sweet. So I love her for that. I don't even have a stanchion. I have a halter, and I just loosely lash it around something.
That's marvelous.
So her temperament, which to me is like, all right, sister, we're locked in. Like, you're not going anywhere as long as I can help it. And she does have, I would say, medium small teats. I can get her. It's me and my middle finger right there. That's it. That's as much purchase as I can get. But I would say her os, I think, the opening is kind of big, so I can get nice thick streams out of her. Yeah, and so that's good. What else about her? She's 3 years old. She is open, so I gotta get her bred.
Where is she in her lactation?
So when she came here, I was getting a gallon and a half once a day milking. She calved in November.
Okay.
That's when she calved. Yeah, in November 2024. A little over a gallon and a half. And then the Arctic decided to plant itself right over us. We've just been in ice for the past week. And I'm down to, I got 9.8 pounds this morning. So we're at a little over a gallon. And I suspect that my 4 little lambs are nursing her during the day. I think they're taking some because she's so passive. She'll just let anybody.
I would kind of doubt it.
I don't know.
You are going to get a drop with the weather.
Okay.
But
That's
since
good to know.
open, remember, if she's open, I mean, this would be true even if she wasn't, but if she's open, she's not hormonally sort of reprogramming herself into a new lactation. So when spring comes she gets green forage, there's every chance that production is going to double or triple. It'll go right back up.
Is she grain fed?
Okay.
How much grain does she get?
So
no grain.
she gets zero grain. But, so I got her, I love the farm, and I'll probably get another cow from them again because, I wish I could show you. I don't know if you can tell. This is coffee that I put cream in.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can tell from the color, that is a very small amount of cream.
I can tell.
And the reason for this, yes, this is because whatever I get from her in the morning is absolutely gone by 4:30 p.m. I have to beg, cajole, and persuade my children to please leave me a little cream in my coffee for the morning. So all that to say, I know we need more than one cow.
We're shy, absolutely.
For sure. But so and I'll probably get her the next one from the same place. They're in Arkansas. They're great. They have a grass-based system.
Nice.
Which you've heard before. And what that means is they do graze, but they also have a infinite quantity of alfalfa pellets, organic, while they're milking. So as much as she can hoover up during milking, she does. Which is good. And I feel like if there is a cow that I can wean off of a treat during milking, hopefully it's an alfalfa munching cow more than a grain dependent one. If that sounds realistic to you, but currently I feel like she's an alfalfa girl.
Absolutely.
Like
Don't change it now.
Right.
The changes will happen when you've got good grass, that she's on good grass.
Okay.
Then you may find what we have found is, so sometimes we'll be giving them hay. Ours are on pasture all year round, but there are times when we've got ice on top of snow that we're giving them some hay. And as they get back into the grass, they stop being interested in the hay. And you may find that grass, as they fill up on grass, she may stop being as interested. So even if you put those alfalfa pellets in there, she may not eat them.
I feel like I've even seen that with my steers. They will eat grass over any hay.
Right.
They will, they'll wreck I have a little sacrifice area when I'm not moving them. And when the winter comes, I try to put them in there. And if there is that much green on the ground, they will spend all day on that before touching the hay.
Right.
That's why we call them sacrifice areas, because we know they're going to take it right down to dirt. How many acres of grass do you have?
They're very oddly shaped paddocks, so I can estimate it's about 6.5, 7 acres of grazable.
That's great.
Which is great. And I move them in small paddocks. What's that?
Is it like Bermuda grass, short Kentucky bluegrass,
It's almost a monocrop of Bermuda.
Of Bermuda,
almost. Because it was a horse property.
Yep, that's
and
why.
And so I found that when I'm rotating, and this is what I've done with 2 steers and about 6 sheep. I keep a flurd, keep them all together, and I move them around that 6.5 acres, and they, one plot only gets about 18 to 20 days rest before they hit it again, if I'm moving them. And I could probably shrink their paddock a little bit, but in 18 days, that the superpower of Bermuda, I feel like, is that it is back only in the warm months.
It's a warm.
That's the thing about turf grasses, and I think we smaller, home production people, are going to be forging our way into the turf grass area when it's been set aside by commercial beef production in this country. In England, where they get their rainfall a little more often and it's been farmed, for many, many, many consecutive years, there's a lot of people grazing turf grasses, and their recovery is fast, right?
Yes.
The volume of each grazing is low. I mean, per area, because turf grass doesn't get that high. But
yes,
its recovery is quick. And we're seeing that on our home 5-acre pasture that has been moving toward Kentucky bluegrass for a long time as a response to not so much close grazing as the fact that it's a north-facing hillside and it's very steep. And the Lord sends the appropriate grasses. And if it hadn't grown in Kentucky bluegrass, it would have eroded. But instead, like these slippery shale slopes are tied down by this tight turf. Nothing like what we've got on the other farm. And I have a feeling that we're going to have to discover for ourselves just how valuable those turf grasses can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so interesting because when I buy hay for the winter, it'll inevitably seed the pasture because I'll kind of strategically drop hay on bald spots and keep them there for a while. And so I do get what they call, kind of the tall grass prairie seed, depending on the hay I get. So to have like blue stem tall grasses. And when those seed, at first I thought, oh, this is great. I'll get the real prairie grass in here. But honestly, like those are designed to be hit once in a year by roving bands of buffalo. And so I find that their regrowth rate, just as I observe them, the cows hit them once, and then 18 days later they'll come back and there's like almost no regrowth. But the Bermuda is up again. So all of that to say, that's what I've seen. I've come to appreciate the turf. I've come to appreciate the Bermuda, and I'm glad I didn't just go in and mow everything down and reseed it or something, because I would not be able to graze it as quickly.
We say let the native grasses come in.
It's like a physical, natural model of the idea that you just do the right thing and then accept that the results are the right results and keep doing the right thing. Years ago, somebody said to us, sounds like a really nice fairy tale that you're telling me that, if you graze in the right patterns, the right grasses grow in. But that's because we think of things as separate entities, right? Whereas grazing and grass and pasture and cows aren't different things. They're all one mixed thing, right? Pasture exists because grazing happens. So when when you move your animals in rotations over Bermuda grass that responds by regrowing, you can trust that, that the things that will grow under your pressure are things that like your pressure. So you're finding that something will, in fact, respond to your pressure. You keep doing it that way. You say to yourself, yep, it's working. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. The grass believes in it.
But this is where when people are, overstocked or things like that, and they say, well, it's getting down to dirt and it's not coming back, we think that's also due to your management.
That's right. That's right.
You can manage badly, and if you're seeing your pasture going downhill, you must change your management styles.
Right. Although more and more we are also working with people who are able to do the 50-50 thing where, look, you get them out there, you graze them in appropriate sized paddocks. When you get to the end, if paddock A has not recovered, onto the sacrifice paddock, feed hay. You can get through more and more of the year with that pattern.
Right.
Because each time you go around and treat it correctly, treat it naturally,
those windows open up.
Right, you get deeper soil, you get more appropriate pasture grasses, everything grows better.
Yeah.
In the beginning, you aren't making as much forage as you will be in the future.
Yes. Yeah. So when you're rotating yours and you feel like, or maybe this doesn't happen to you anymore, but maybe it has in the past when you're building the fertility of the pasture, that you're there for the next day to move them on a day, and you're like, this land, this paddock they're going to needs a longer break. to recover.
Right.
And it's, let's say it's September, or maybe even July, and they're not into eating hay. At least my cows, they're like, what?
Right.
Hay? July? Is this a joke? And so you would still send them to the sacrifice area. Sorry, guys, it's hay. Like we gotta prioritize the recovery.
Alan Savory would say you're looking at the whole farm all the time. So it's not a clockwork. Yeah. It's not the next place. It's where on the farm is the grass high enough. And if there's no place on the farm that the grass high enough, absolutely you need to move them to
the other option, like in September, we've been in a drought for 4 or 5 years. And last year this area was the worst drought in the country. I don't know who measures and how they make the comparison, but that was the technical, that was the official word. And and we could see it even on land that's been grazed well for 15 years. We actually took the lactating herd, so that was 3 cows and a calf, and we moved them, like a half mile up the road to 3 or 4 acres a friend of ours owned that she had cut for hay in the middle of the summer, and it had regrown and she hadn't recut it. And it wasn't great grass, and it wasn't a ton of grass, but it was ready to be grazed if somebody wanted to graze it. And it really helps if you have neighbors who are negligent, because she's not. But it would really help to have negligent neighbors where you could say, hey, Joe, I noticed that you've got an acre of weeds right there. Can I graze my cows over it? It's all temporary fence. I can, for the 2 weeks it takes them to graze that, I can hold water, and that saves you some time too. But definitely, like, buying somebody else's carbon and building up a manure pack somewhere is win-win, right? You get more than the value, you get more than your money's worth in value from that hay, and you get waste hay and manure on top of that.
Yes, and the hay conundrum is interesting too, because I've found it is really hard to find clean hay here. It's all sprayed.
I bet it is.
You got to go so far.
Right.
The only, oddly, I found recently I can get organic alfalfa bales, alfalfa hay bales. They're huge. They're like 860-pound bales.
Wow.
And they're the same. It's I'm gonna tell you. Hold on, let me think here. $218.
Okay, I was thinking $250, so that sounds good to me.
Yeah, for an organic alfalfa, that is roughly the same price as the local, sprayed hay, field hay, from the farm supply store, and it's cheaper than like the $27 100-pound bale of Bermuda grass, which is probably grown in a greenhouse in Texas somewhere. So I'm thinking, I think that's my hay. It's kind of weird that it's alfalfa, but that's like,
I wish I could get
that is the most affordable unsprayed version of hay I can get.
Right.
Well, one of the things that, as we were looking at growing our herd, was that we could either, we're going to buy in hay and we're going to increase our herd, or we can say, how much food will this farm produce? And then we stock for that so that they are on grass all year round. So we're understocked.
We are very understocked
for most people. And in the summer, the grass gets way ahead of us. But that's what our stockpile, we set aside about half the farm in July or so. And we run the cows on the other half until January. And then we bring them in on January. And Beth really has to look. She's the grass guru. And she really has to say, how much grass do we have? And we need to destock, either eat it or sell it or something for the extra animals, and just keep our numbers low enough.
It is a constant juggling thing. And if I had, and especially on a smaller acreage, if somebody has access to high quality hay, especially an acreage that you're trying to improve, like, by golly, bring in the hay.
Yeah.
Graze the animals across that. I mean, it's exactly what Caleb Hanshaw is doing in West Virginia, is going to a place that doesn't have the forage and bringing in forage and animals and combining them on a spot and building up soil that way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And you talk about what will this land produce, and that's what we're going to stock to, what the land can do. Was there a time in the past when there were the 5 boys and the daughters who wanted to eat this much, and the land could do this? And
that was our original property. So we had 16 acres. There was about 2 acres of that. Well, not even that was flat. And then we were borrowing the neighbor's property, and we were running over there. And we needed to do something. What are we going to do? And somebody told us that in Medjugorje, he had been in Medjugorje, and he said that they have cows there that are in the barn all the time. And I thought, okay,
that's a European thing.
Maybe that's what we need to go to. But then the convent up the road, a mile and a half up the road, they had this property, and they were, they had bought it as a Y2K thing.
You know what that
is. Know the Y2K.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously Y2K didn't happen. So then they were just having somebody come in and brush hog it a couple times a year.
Yeah.
And we said to them, how about if we take hay off of it? And they said, that's fine. And then we said, how about if we run our cows up here? That's our major farm.
If we only had the 5 acres at home to graze and say a half an acre to put in gardens, that it would still raise all our food. We just wouldn't eat. I mean, we eat meat as a default. I think you do too. Like, it's what the land produces. This is not profligate. This is not waste. Nobody's biome is being degraded by our being carnivores. Because every bite we eat makes the ground better, but we eat meat as a default because we have a lot.
It's the cheapest food there is.
Right, we go through several pigs and steers in a year, but if we didn't have access to as much grass as we have, we'd replace some of that meat with potatoes, and we'd still be just fine. I mean, I could calculate pretty accurately what it would take us to keep a dairy cow raise, one calf. I'd have a yearling and a 2-year-old every year because I'd be keeping calves that long to get them fattened. But I could calculate pretty closely, like how many acres do I need for all of that, plus we raise a lot of our animal food, so we consequently keep an acre in tillage at any given time. So that acre, and it wouldn't be very much land. It would be actually not very much space, say 6 acres maybe.
But when we're speaking, and these people have that, I've got 2 acres and that's all I've got, we say, look around. There is abandoned fields somewhere around you, and you approach them and you say, would you mind if I...
Or we go back to the... so there's a great book called Keeping a Single Cow, something like this. It was it's actually a collection of essays that were written in 1880. And some New England state, I can't remember who, held an essay contest, and they invited people who kept an urban cow to submit. And there were lots and lots of submissions. And your first thought when you read it is, I am mortified to live in an age where not 1 in 1,000 people could produce an essay like this, because they obviously had no problem finding lots of people who could write a good essay. But they're writing how they keep a single cow in the city. And there's a million dodges for it, and it's a perfectly legitimate way to keep a cow. It's not the best, but what? It gives you a dairy cow.
And it wasn't grain. It was manglewurzels and...
So a lot of them are actually raising the food on, like there's one guy who writes about, he keeps 1/4 of an acre, and he's since all of his manure is going back on that quarter of an acre, he doesn't have to work green manures in there. So he's just got back-to-back crops. It's cabbages and beets, and I can't remember what all he's feeding her over the course of a year. But it's brilliant. It's marvelous, and it's perfectly legit. Oh, you know what's between us nationally and doing things like that is purely that we don't need to.
We don't need to.
Right?
Yeah.
It's convenient. I'd rather go to McDonald's.
It was one of the things that Jason said, which I thought was great, is he kept saying, the reason we started doing this was because I needed to. And we all need to. That's what's really important, is that we need to do this. And if we don't need to do it financially, what's wonderful is that the agricultural system has made it necessary to do it to get good food.
The food is so toxic that people will be driven to grow their own, perforce.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I tell people. I mean, the most important ingredient in anything that you're consuming is what it ate and how you harvested it. And neither of those things can be guaranteed on the large scale. It's not even possible.
I mean, the guarantee works the opposite direction at this point. You can almost guarantee yourself this stuff is toxic, right? There's a remote chance it's not, but it probably is.
And you can't even guarantee it on the small scale, unfortunately. I mean, for yourself you can, but to go to a farmer's market and say, I think this is really good organic, maybe not.
Right. Go visit.
Yeah, especially in the meat world, that is the case. And it's very sad. I experienced this whole new realm. This is totally unrelated. Sorry, brain everywhere. But
that's fine.
The dairy cow, Georgie, it's, I love experiencing all the things we're supposed to be terrified by when you live naturally, namely new smells and substances and oils and fats and greases and dirty things. There's so many dirty things. Yes. And the cow, because of the way we've done meat for so long and raised pigs and harvested them on the small backyard scale and cured them fearlessly with just salt and not chemicals, I'm no longer, my fears are gone. And I love the poop. Like, I love it. It's all good for you. And so it's been such a joy to have Georgie, because I'm like, oh my goodness, this is a whole plethora of aromas and substances I have never experienced before. And I do wash my hands a lot, but I can always smell the creamy burp of my cow, her butter burps. I love it when she burps in my face. Like butter. It smells like butter. And her udder even has this, I feel like I do put udder balm on her. I did want to run by my milking protocol. Run it by you, but I do what you said. I have the bucket in between my knees and I am sitting under her, like I am right under her.
She's very short.
My legs are all the way out on the other side of her body. And holding it in my knees, which is great because I can get it nice and close to her udder. Right. And basically I wipe her down with warm water, before milking all over, try to get her clean. And there's this lovely, when it's not positively poo that she sat in, there is always this, golden oil all over the cloth that I rub her down with. That is not repulsive at all. It's just interesting, and it actually kind of smells nice. And so I rub her down with that, which I think she enjoys on the cold days. And then I strip her out from each teat, and it looks great to me every time, no stringiness. And then I milk her out as best I can. And she will sit there longer than it takes me to milk her out. So sometimes it's like a competition. It's like, all right, Georgie, I'm going to sit here and milk until you want to leave. And it's like, I am getting nothing. And she's just still eating. So, which I appreciate about her. And so I'm trying to really milk her out all the way. Yes. And then finally, I do take a dry cloth at the end, and I just kind of wipe her down, and then I do the udder balm, and that's it. That's my milking protocol.
Perfect. Yeah, it sounds perfect. Okay. And she obviously likes it, right? Yeah, that's one of the things that people don't don't register about a dairy cow. Like, guys, this is an 800-pound animal. If she did not like being here, this would not be happening. She's enjoying herself. She likes this process.
And any mother who's nursed a child knows that.
Absolutely. Full of milk, please take it.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what I feel is somewhat miraculous about the dairy cow. It's another order of domestication of this beautiful art.
She lets us be where only a calf would normally be.
She welcomes us.
She doesn't complain about that. She says it's fine for you to be there. She also, when you open the barn, she knows right where she's going. She goes to that stanchion. Yeah. And in fact, she's there before you on the few days when you're late. They are incredibly conformable. Yeah, really wonderful. And in fact, we are the ones that need to conform to them in a certain sense, to be on time.
Yes. That's so true. I've been trying to express it, and I haven't been able to do it yet, but there's a way in which Georgie is more human than I am, and I totally don't mean that anthropomorphically at all. Yeah. I mean, she is more attached to human society than I am, which is crazy because she's a bovine. So she does not relate to the sheep at all. She does not moo at the cows that she can see in the next field. She moos at me. She wants us. It's incredible.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say that it's totally, it's uncharacteristic, because my whole life is working with animals. I slaughter them. And the dairy animal, it's a different order of domestication, even different than the animals we eat all the time. The partnership is very complex.
When people say, and you'll see this, I try not to notice comments that people make, but people say, how dare you keep that herd animal by herself? And they've mistaken the meaning of the word domesticity, right? She's part of our household. And that doesn't mean I've, tied her up and forced her to be in the household, but we are her herd mates. And again, no anthropomorphism here. We're just her herd mates. We're who she wants to be with, so
yes.
And that doesn't necessarily mean a cow that gives kisses, like you'll see the cute little pictures of the cow giving the kiss, and I think, nah, my cows don't usually give me a smooch, but they clearly I am part of the world, part of what makes the world comfortable for them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Almost like a dog, a border collie, or
much more like a dog.
Yeah.
And in fact, for the same reasons, right, Lauren? In that together we make a safer and more abundant world than we would make separately. It's better for both the dog and the human, or both the cow and the human. Here's a conundrum for you. Sheep and goats have twins and triplets, yet they have only two teats, 2 quarters to their bag, right? Two halves, I would have to say. A cow, who almost always delivers a singleton, has 4 quarters to her bag. The Lord intended them for our delight and our delectation. I mean, you can come up with any other explanation you like, but that for me is at least as valid as anything else. They have 4 quarters so that they can partner with human beings,
Yes. Well, and So I have totally disabused myself of any obligation to evolutionary biology. It's a great, liberating feeling, because the world is so much more beautiful when you just don't even pretend that has any legitimacy. And one of the things that Joel Salatin actually pointed out when I was on a little podcast thing with him was on the 5th day of creation, God created cattle. It says cattle.
Right. That's right. It does say that.
Which is specifically domesticated. And I know we're we're modern and we're so smart. We're like, oh, well, they didn't know the difference between wild and domesticated back then. Those silly ancients don't know what they're doing. It's I'm so over that. No, they was very precise. They knew what they were saying. Yeah, and I think that's a great point, that the 4 teats, the 1 calf, let's do the math, people. And she's sweet.
Right. Who gets the other 3? That'd be us.
Yeah, that's right. Get in there.
Well, it's nearing the time where they have to go milk their own cows. And I don't want to make them too late after all that we've said.
This has been so delightful. We must do it again.
And I would say
We would
too,
love to.
like
Go ahead.
the homesteading, the human scale world is big and beautiful and wonderful, and there are tons and tons of great people out there. We would want them all to be gathered into the Catholic faith one day. Mm-hmm. And it is such a blessing when we do get to foregather with our brothers and sisters in the Catholic faith to have these conversations, because there are no dark areas then. I mean, there are lots that we don't know about, but there are none that we sort of have to black out and not look at, because we share so much, and that's a huge blessing for us.
Yeah, I was just concerned that I knew you came to it with certain questions, and I thought we've gone on everything else, and I wonder, are they getting their questions answered?
Right. Did we cover?
So you'll have to bring us back so that we can really answer your questions at some point.
We will.
And ask you a few.
We will.
Yeah,
And ask you a few too.
Yeah. Well, we should tell everyone that there is a book coming out soon.
Yeah.
by Shawn and Beth, and so we will definitely have you on when that comes out. Please let us know when it's being released, and we'll try to make everyone aware. We do want to point out the book that is already out. It's been out for years. We've had it in every room of our home because it's been such a staple. My 15-year-old has read it front to back, and Brandon's read it several times. It's just been really, really helpful.
It is called The Independent Farmstead.
That's right.
Yes.
And the other thing we'd like for people to know about is
can you see it?
Our
Yes.
Yeah.
This is our oldest son, Luke, and he makes butchering trailers.
If you go to Dougherty, is it Dougherty Butchering Trailers?
Well, if you go to One Cow Revolution, which is our one sad, pathetic attempt at having an online presence. We don't.
That's about to change. We found somebody who's going to help us do
It'll still be,
yes, no. He's going to help us do a good webpage.
Right.
But
there is a widget on the right-hand side somewhere that lets you go to Dougherty Farmstead Butcher Trailers.
Do you want to say something as a butcher? You've looked at it before.
He's got a great website. Yeah. I feel like it's newer. His is up and running, and it looks awesome. He's got a video where he does a walkthrough of the trailer.
Right. The other thing adding onto it this time is a track, so that you can hook that animal up at the outside and then slide it into the thing. So it's going to be a really great trailer, and every community ought to have a trailer. Not every family, but every community should have one, and then they can share it as this goes around to the different houses for butchering.
He does traveling butchering for people, and he does that too. Is just takes it in, and then it can chill for the requisite week or 2 weeks or whatever it is before he does the butcher.
Yes, and people need to hear that part, because that is really cool. That's always the challenging part. This is a trailer that you can slaughter off the back of it and then take the skinned carcass, put it in a walk-in cooler that is on the trailer. Mm-hmm. Right. But it's a walk-in cooler you can plug in because it's a CoolBot. It's a window-mounted AC unit, and he has expertly wired it so that all you need is an extension cord, and just plug it in, pop it in, and it's chilling.
And
it's pretty cool.
Also, just put it on a generator as well. So if you don't have access to,
because that's how he's done it at Rory's.
So just do a generator.
Right.
I can't tell you. Brandon made his setup. This was years ago now, at least maybe a decade now, and it took years of strategizing, designing, and then executing with like welders, and it was just this puzzle piece for so long. How are we going to, because he knew the skill of dressing a carcass, but transporting it and hoisting it to the height that it really needs to be at, especially if it's a pig and you're scalding, like all these considerations were thought about. And we were looking for him 12 years ago.
And the hardest part about it is the transition from where the carcass is hanging, getting that to the cooler.
Right.
So that little extendable track, that right there, that's the biggest enigma of every setup.
Yeah, I think
yes.
It'd be really, yeah.
Technology.
So good luck with that. Yeah.
Yes, because it is an instrument, not an end. It is a means, not an end. And that trailer serves that. Yeah. Doesn't become an end.
But we are really looking forward to seeing you guys in Oklahoma when we come
yes.
to the conference. So the Okie Homestead Conference that's our first one out of the box this year, and we're looking forward to that. Okay. That's in March.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's in March.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
I'm actually going to come to that with my kids. I've never been to a conference before, so I'm excited to bring the whole family.
Yeah.
Thank you. I can't wait to meet you in person.
Warm weather ahead. We'd like to come down and get warm briefly.
I really hope it's warm in March. I was like, okay, that's early, but
you're in Oklahoma. You're supposed to plant your potatoes on St. Patty's Day, so it should be warm enough for that.
Wow.
Yeah, we plant on Good Friday.
We learned that one from the Amish.
Wow.
It's fascinating because that's a moon cycle. And we have found that it really, we've only done it a couple of years when we've discovered this, but it really seems our potatoes do better when we get them in on Good Friday.
Wow. That's awesome.
Neat.
And probably like the eggs that you're supposed to collect on Easter Sunday. Those are the best eggs.
Those.
Yeah.
Special.
Yeah.
Well, that's the basis of the Easter egg hunt was people used to fast from eggs all during Lent.
Okay.
Yeah. No eggs,
Pickle
no cheese, no meat.
Yeah.
Or not even, because, if the bloom's on there, they're good for 3 months at least, just sitting in the nest.
Yeah.
And then that's why you go hunting for Easter eggs on Sunday.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you for
and best of luck getting into your new home. I'm so excited
next
for you.
Week.
Thank you. We hope so.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, God bless you guys.
Thank
Bye
you.
now.
Good to see you.
Thank you again, Meatsmiths, for listening to our take on all things meat making, householding, and culture keeping. We hope it's helped you in growing your home around the harvest.